Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the Public Safety Committee and my colleagues, particularly you, Councilmember Katz, for shepherding this through, and Councilmember Hucker and Albernaz on the committee. Thank you for letting me join you as well. And I want to thank all my colleagues, since everyone is a co-sponsor, which is always nice on your first bill. This is a critically important piece of legislation that, as was stated, in the most serious of cases, when a police officer takes the life of a resident, this bill will call for an independent investigation, and it makes that investigative report public.
Police investigating police
When
does
it-
not lead up to our safety. We are not safe.
When it passes today, it will have not been without scrutiny, challenge, or opposition from many sides, some of which you just heard. But it's also important to take a moment and recognize that this bill will pass with unanimous support of the council,
Because
and
it
with
is
the
police
vocal
investigating
and
police.
widespread support. This is my time to speak, ma'am, please.
We are not
With the
safe.
support.
Okay, we have had our public hearing already, and today what we want to do is work through the final step of this particular legislation. We appreciate everybody's input, but we do have to do our work. And so
I wanna
I
be
appreciate,
safe.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate
And we've
that.
had public hearings, and we've had opportunities for
And
public
we weren't
input.
allowed to end those public hearings.
I'm going to
We had-
finish
They were-
my
they were
statement. If you'd like
public.
to talk
They were
after, we can
public. And
speak after.
afterwards, we can do
Please
that.
let me finish
Councilmember
my
Jawando,
statement.
please
Thank you.
continue.
And I want to thank all those who worked on this bill. I want to thank the advocates, the many others who wrote letters and testified and posted messages on social media. Now we begin the critical work of building the trust and transparency that we need to between our law enforcement and the community. Because while the passage of the LEAD Act today is a major achievement for Montgomery County, in fact, the first piece of criminal justice legislation in quite a long time, we must also recognize that our work to remedy the social injustice that disproportionately puts young black and brown men and women into handcuffs, jail cells, and too often into their graves has only just begun. We must think about these outcomes as what they are: failures. An arrest is a failure, not something that we should use as a marker to measure success in policing. In fact, arrests should be rare occurrences when there is no other alternative and the threat to public safety is great. But our current system does not do that. It encourages stops and often incentivizes arrests and tracks them as measures of success. I would like to imagine a new system where markers of success are how many community activities our police participate in, how many situations have we de-escalated, how many people have we helped and served. And it's not just on our police, many of whom do these things every day. We have great women and men who protect and serve us. The breakdown of our criminal justice system is a systemic societal failure that reaches beyond individuals, and it is a result of many factors that find their roots in our history, policies, and priorities. Montgomery County is a special place. We draw people here that have purpose, and in so many ways we offer a promise that is unique and different from other jurisdictions. We take pride in our progressive positions, in our desire to care for each other and our neighbors. But we have serious problems here in Montgomery County. Despite this promise, there are too many of our residents for whom the simple acts of life, like taking a late afternoon walk near their home, are situations that are wrought with anxiety, fear, or even death. If you are a person of color or new American or live in certain neighborhoods, these simple acts suddenly become much more complicated. Trust me when I tell you I know what I'm talking about. Montgomery County is my home. It's where I grew up, and it's where I've chosen to raise my own family. But it hasn't always been easy to live here. As a young black man and now as a father of 4 young black children, I know my experience is something that is not unique and is shared with others who call Montgomery County home. Growing up in Long Branch, a neighborhood that's mostly low income and immigrant, most of you know that neighborhood from the news where the Flower Branch apartments exploded, killing 7 of our residents. We know that the cause of that explosion now is for faulty gas equipment. We might as well say we know people died because they were poor. Because when you're poor in Montgomery County, chances are your apartment building isn't properly inspected. Chances are your school doesn't have a playing field that's new. Chances are that your teachers are overburdened and your school needs additional resources. Chances are you don't have after-school programs that you need, or that the dignity of work isn't always working for you as you travel to 2 or 3 jobs and take a bus system that could take 2 or 3 hours to get home or to your work. And unfortunately, if you're a person of color, the chances are much, much higher that you will be killed by a police officer, or arrested, and charged, or stopped, and detained, maybe frisked or held. There's a difference between who we think we are and what the statistics say about who we are in Montgomery County. We need only look at the use of force report issued by our police a few weeks ago to see that black people, who make up 19% of the population, account for over 55% of those involved in use of force incidents. Latinos account for over 20% of those incidences. And if you look at our arrest data, you see similar disproportionate numbers, even though we know people commit crimes at relatively the same rate. Our disproportionate health outcomes for our communities of color. For minor offenses, we criminalize poverty. We target certain communities, and we've created a system here in the U.S. that punishes people in a different way. And all of it happens in Montgomery County. So while I hope everyone sees the LEAD Act as a great start, it only, for me, unlocks the door. We have to push through that door and walk through it. We have to begin our journey to a place where justice is administered fairly and equitably, and I'm excited to work with my colleagues to do this, to make things more fair for all, a goal I know they all share. So thank you for this support, and thank you for this support of this bill.